opening statement, let me just observe something here, and this comes from the heart. I've been around here a long time. I've served in the House for 8 years. I started in the Senate and was on the Senate Armed Services Committee starting in 1994. And I don't think I've ever seen a more impressive group of witnesses on a specific subject who are the better qualified than this in all that time. And I really mean it. I mean, we talk about Mr. Deasy, who's the Department of Defense Chief Information Officer. He was also the CIO of J.P. Morgan Chase, British Petroleum Company, and General Motors. I mean, you know, we've not had one like that before. And Dr. Griffin, he knows this issue as well as anyone, anywhere. He's been our NASA administrator. And then we have Admiral Thad Allen. He has been the chairman of NASA's Space-Based Positioning, Navigation, and Time National Advisory Board. That's GPS, and so he's the authority on that. And then, of course, obviously, the chief of our space operations, General J. Raymond. So it's just a privilege to have you guys here, have this much quality here, this much authority, because what we're going to be talking about is an issue that could be really damaging to our country if something is wrong. So I would say good morning to the committee and say good afternoon, and appreciate your being here. Now, because of the unusual circumstances, there's a new little required thing that we have to go through, so bear with me. Before we begin, I want to thank all of you for being here. It's required that we are abiding by guidance from the Office of the Attending Physician, Sergeant of Arms, Rules Committee, as we hold this hearing today. Many steps were taken to minimize the risk of our members, our witnesses, our staff, and the public. That means we're all 6 feet from one another. You've also got cleaning supplies at your seats, and if maintaining 6 feet of the separation becomes a problem, then I encourage you to use your mask. And that we're here today under these circumstances underscores the importance of the subject that we're addressing today. And what we're going to do, we're going to have our opening statements and then proceed on with 5-minute questions. And we are going to have a second round of questions, too. This is a complex issue, but it ultimately boils down to risk. And I don't think it's a good idea to place at risk the GPS signals that enable our national and economic security for the benefit of one company and its investors. After extensive testing and analysis, experts at almost every federal agency tell us that Ligado's plan will interfere with our GPS systems. This will certainly affect our warfighters who rely on GPS for navigation, logistics, and precision guidance munitions, whether in training or on the battlefield. But this is about much more than risking our military readiness and capabilities. Interfering with GPS will hurt the entire American economy. We'll have some good witnesses to talk about that and elaborate on that. Our farmers rely on GPS to harvest their crops. Our truckers and airlines rely on GPS to move supplies and people. Our banks rely on GPS timing function. Every American uses GPS every day. And at the end of the day, economic security is national security. Now, we all agree that we need to compete with China in the 5G development. No one is disputing that fact. We've been working on that for months with the Department of Defense and the telecom industry cooperating with each other and accomplishing that very thing. That's not the issue. Ligado's proposal is not tied to that work whatsoever. Now, we're talking about the G5, the competition with China. They've tried to conflate their proposal with other mid-band spectrum sharing discussions, but in reality, these two issues are completely separate. It's completely separate from each other. In answering the argument that GPS would be disruptive, the FCC says Ligado will be forced to pay for any disruptions its service causes to GPS. Now, the reality is that the FCC order only requires Ligado to replace government-owned devices. That doesn't accomplish it if it were doable. Ultimately, the burden of mitigating harm interference will be placed on the Department of Defense, and the American taxpayers would end up, as normally is the case, having to pay for it. A few powerful people made a hasty decision over the weekend, in the middle of the national crisis, against the judgment of every other agency involved, and without cluing the president in on any of this. And I've had conversations with him, and I can assure you that's the case. The FCC may not be in this committee's jurisdiction, but the effects of its decision really are, and I think we all understand that. I hope our witnesses will speak to the enormous risk this decision has for everyone who relies on GPS in America. With the technical and important nature of this topic, we will structure this hearing with a consolidated opening statement from the three Department of Defense witnesses, followed by the fourth witness. This will allow a detailed explanation of the national security implications of the FCC's decision and what steps the military will need to take to mitigate these effects. The Department of Defense has provided materials to accompany their statement that are available in front of you and on display for the public view. Now, this is very significant because some people are familiar with this organization and some are not. But those who are know that this is where all of the defense people are. I plan to submit for the record a letter I received from the National Defense Industrial Association, which is made up of 1,700 businesses, 70,000 individual members, stating their strong opposition to Ligado's proposal, along with a list of 71 companies and associations that are opposed as well. The FCC was fully aware of this. They received the letter from this organization a week before their weekend vote. So you must believe that it couldn't get worse, but it is. Ligado took over a bankrupt company in 2015 and has been trying to obtain FCC licensing ever since. They waited until the whole world was distracted by COVID, the virus, and when everyone was looking the other way, and unannounced to the public, it wasn't announced, in total secrecy on a weekend, passed the most controversial licensing bill, I think, in the history of the FCC. And I say this because the federal agency opposition was unanimous. You never see that. We had all organizations, all federal agencies opposing this. Not just the military, but all of government and the private sector, including the airlines, the farmers, the truckers, the maritime manufacturers, opposed the licensing, and the FCC knew it. And hence, we had the weekend rushed vote. Senator Reid.